Hello? There we go.
See if we can hear it. Leave it on for a second. We'll go back to the purpose and just say.
We good?
I think so.
Because I can't find Dave.
He's right here talking to Chi.
Oh, okay. Good. Yep, so we just got to hit the little button down there that says started. Oh, say live.
That's what we're trying to see. Because it wasn't working, so.
Yes, I'm here. Okay, can I do now? Uh, right now I'm in the box. Can you see? Okay. Hello, hello. Okay. Hello. Can you hear me? Okay, it's fine. Test, test. Can you hear? Okay.
we good to go? Okay, great. Well, good morning and welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's July 27th, 2022 administrative meeting. We have a pretty full agenda today, but let's first start by taking up last minutes and minutes from the July 13th administrative meeting. All in favor of adopting those, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are adopted. Mr. Executive Secretary, the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, just on the previous vote, I just want to point out I did not vote.
Oh, very good. That's right. You were not here on the 13th. Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. There are 16 items on today's consent agenda. Items number 1 and 2 are updated standard offer service rates for Type 2 customers from Delmarva Power and Light Company and Potomac Electric Power Company. Item number 3 is a request from Liberty Power Delaware LLC to cancel its electricity supplier license. Items 4 through 16 are tariff revisions regarding 8YY access charge reform from respectively Granite Telecommunications LLC, Broadvex Selec LLC, Wide Voice LLC, Envoy LLC, Neutral Tandem Maryland LLC, IDT America Corp., Intrado Communications LLC, AT&T Corp., Teleport Communications America LLC, Eris Inc., Peerless Network of Maryland LLC, Level 3 Communications LLC, and Level 3 Telecom of Maryland LLC.
Thank you. Do commissioners have any questions for any of these items? Seeing none, I am prepared to offer a number of motions. First, for items number 1 and item number 2, updating standard offer services rules for Type 2 customers, I move that we accept the tariff provisions for filing with an effective date of September 1st, 2022. For item number 3, request to cancel electricity supplier license, I move that we approve the cancellation request. For item number 4, tariff provisions regarding AYY access charge reform, I move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of July 1st, 2022. For items number 5 through 14, tariff revisions regarding AYY access charge reform, I move we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of August 2nd, 2022. For items number 15 and 16, tariff revisions regarding AYY access charge reform, I move we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of July 30, 2022. And the vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Now move to the administrative agenda, Mr. Executive Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, item number 17 is a notification from Baltimore Gas and Electric Company of a change in the Montgomery County fuel energy tax.
Great, thank you. Ms. Shea.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Lucy Shea on behalf of staff. On July 7th, 2022, Baltimore Gas and Electric Company filed notice of revisions implementing the Montgomery County fuel energy surcharge for fiscal year 23, effective July 1, 22. BGE's proposed tariff revision reflects the Commission's current assessment factor for fiscal year 23 pursuant to the Commission's letter order dated June 17, 22. Effective July 1, 22, the Montgomery County fuel energy tax rates for the July 1, 22 through June 30th, 23 for electric customers are 0.01106 per kilowatt hour for residential customers and 0.01978 per kilowatt hour for non-residential customers, which are unchanged from the prior year. The Montgomery County fuel tax is grossed up to include the FY23 Commission assessment rate of 0.002773 and the gross receipts tax rate of 2%, which is unchanged from the last fiscal year. The gross up calculation results in a Montgomery County fuel billing rate of 0.011317 per kilowatt hour for residential customers and 0.0202409 per kilowatt hour for non-residential customers. The Montgomery County fuel tax monthly bill impact for an electric residential customer using 1,000 kilowatt hours per month will be $11.32, which when rounded is 1 cent higher than the fiscal year 22 rate. The Montgomery County fuel tax rates for the period 7/1/22 through June 30th, 23 for gas customers are .09515 per therm for residential customers and .17026 per therm for non-residential customers, which are unchanged from the last fiscal year. The Montgomery County fuel tax is grossed up to include the fiscal year 23 commission assessment rate of .002773 and the gross receipts tax rate of 2%, which is unchanged from the last fiscal year. The grossing up calculation results in a Montgomery County fuel tax billing rate of .0973673 per therm for residential customers and .1742277 per therm for non-residential customers. The Montgomery County fuel energy tax bill impact for a gas customer using 57 therms per month will be $5.55, which is unchanged from the fiscal year 22 billing rate. Staff recommends that the Commission note the filing with an effective date of July 1, 22 and waive the 30-day notice period required under Public Utility Article 4-203A.
Thank you, Ms. Shea. Representative from the company.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joel Michelle on behalf of BGE. I also have with me John Frayne. We do not have any formal presentation, but we are available for questioning.
All right, thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? Hearing none, I will offer the following motion. I move we note the filing with an effective date of July 1st, 2022, and grant a waiver of the 30-day notice period required by Public Utilities Article 4-203A. The vote starts with Commissioner Brubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Mr. Chairman, item number 18 is a notification from Potomac Electric Power Company of an update to the Montgomery County Surcharge, the Maryland Environmental Surcharge, and the Prince George's County Energy Tax Rates.
Ms. Alexander.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Tanika Alexander on behalf of staff. On July 7th, 2022, Potomac Electric Power Company filed notice of revisions implementing the Montgomery County Surcharge, the Maryland Environmental Surcharge, and the Prince George's County Energy Tax for fiscal year 23, effective with meter readings taken on or after July 1, 22. PEPCO recommends that the Commission waives the 30-day notice requirement required by Public Utilities Article Section 4-203A. The revision to the Montgomery County Surcharge reflects the Commission's current assessment factor for fiscal year 23 pursuant to the Commission's letter order dated June 17, 2022. It also reflects the Montgomery County Fuel Energy Tax, which is unchanged. The MCFET rates are 0.01106 per kilowatt hour for residential customers and 0.01978 per kilowatt hour for non-residential customers, which are unchanged from the prior period. The MCS is grossed up by the fiscal year 23 Commission assessment rate of 0.002773 and the gross receipts tax rate of 2%, which is unchanged from the last fiscal year. The gross up calculation results in an MCS billing rate of 0.0113177 per kilowatt hour for residential customers and 0.0202409 per kilowatt hour for non-residential customers. The MCS monthly bill impact for electric residential customer using 1,000 kilowatt hours per month will be $11.32, which is 1 cent higher than the fiscal year 22 billing rate. Staff reviewed the PEPCO's calculation of MCS billing rates for residential and non-residential customers and found them to be accurate. The revised Maryland Environmental Surcharge rate of 0.000152 per kilowatt hour for fiscal year 23 was approved by the Commission in its June 1, 22 general notice. The revised rate reflects an increase from the rate of 0.000147 per kilowatt hour that was in effect last fiscal year. The monthly rate impact of the fiscal year 23 environmental surcharge for a residential customer using 1,000 kilowatt hours per month will be a charge of 15 cents per kilowatt hour, which results in no monthly change from the surcharge that was in effect last period. Staff has determined that the MES rate complies with Commission's environmental surcharge factor general notice dated June 1, 22. The Prince George's County Government Office of Finance directed PEPCO to implement a Prince George's County Energy Tax, PGCET, of 0.010728 per kilowatt hour for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 22. The Prince George's County Energy Tax rate increased from 0.009710 per kilowatt hour for the 12-month period that began July 1, 21. The PGCET monthly bill rate for an electric residential customer using 1,000 kilowatt hours per month will be $10.73, which is a $1.02 increase from last year's billing rate. Staff has reviewed PEPCO's filing and found the rate to be in compliance with the Prince George's County Government Office of Finance letter of June 2nd. And staff recommends that the Commission note the filing with an effective date of July 1 and waive the 30-day notice period required under PUA Section 4-203A.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander.
I'm available for questions.
Oh, great, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Seeger, counsel for PEPCO.
Good morning, Commissioners. Matt Seegers appearing for PEPCO. Also appearing with me is Mr. Matt Bonikowski, our subject matter expert on this topic. We have nothing to add to staff's presentation, but we're available if you have any questions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Seegers. Do commissioners have questions? Seeing none, I will now offer the following motion for item number 18. I move that we note the filing with an effective date of July 1st, 2022, and grant a waiver of the 30-day notice period required by Public Utilities Article 4-203A. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Mr. Chairman, item number 19 consists of tariff revisions from Delmarva Power and Light Company reflecting the revised Maryland environmental surcharge rate.
Welcome back, Ms. Shea.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Lucy Shea on behalf of staff. On July 7th, 2022, Delmarva Power and Light filed clean and red-lined copies of its related tariff page to reflect the Maryland environmental surcharge rate for fiscal year 23 of .000139 per kilowatt hour, approved by the Commission in its general notice dated June 1, 2022. The environmental surcharge reflects a reduction from the current 0.000147 per kilowatt hour rate applicable during the 12-month period that began July 2021. The monthly rate impact of the revised environmental surcharge for a residential customer using 1,000 kilowatt hours per month will decrease 1 cent from a charge of 15 cents per kilowatt hour to 14 cents per kilowatt hour when rounded. Staff recommends that the Commission accept for filing the proposed tariff revision of Delmarva with an effective date of July 1, 2022. Staff also recommends that the Commission waive the 30-day notice period required by Public Utilities Article Section 4-203A. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Seegers.
I have nothing to add, Your Honor.
Great, thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Seeing none, for item number 19, I will now offer the following motion. I move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of July 1st, 2022, and grant a waiver of the 30-day notice period required by Public Utilities Article 4-203A. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Mr. Chairman, item number 20 is an update to the Warrior Run surcharge from the Potomac Edison Company.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kevin Mosier on behalf of staff. By letter dated June 20th, June 29th, Potomac Edison is requesting authorization to update its purpose surcharge for the Warrior Run facility for the August through December billing period. The company states in its filing that as wholesale energy market prices were higher for 2022 than originally expected, it'd be inadvisable to wait until the end of the year to true up this fund. To mitigate the over-recovery, the company spelled out 3 options and recommends the Commission select option 3. This would set the surcharge to 0 for the remainder of 2022 and would result in a surplus which would be used to lower the expected 2023 surcharge. Staff agrees with the Commission, or staff agrees that we should select option 3, as this would lead to the least variation over the course of the next 18 months in the surcharge. Therefore, staff recommends that the Commission accept for filing the revised tariff pages with an effective date of August 1st, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. Mr. Chow, counsel for Potomac Edison.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Jeffrey Trout, as you said, counsel to the Potomac Edison Company. We agree with staff's analysis. We have been advised in writing that the Office of People's Counsel also agrees with staff's analysis, including the selection of option 3 as the course to pursue. I'm here to attempt to answer any questions that you have.
Right, thank you, Mr. Trout. Did OPC, Mr. Hoover, or Mr. Sammartino wish to be heard?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Fred Hoover on behalf of the Office of People's Counsel. As Mr. Trout said, we are in support of the staff's recommendation of use of option 3.
Great. Well, it's good to see that there was agreement on that item. Could I just ask Mr. Mosier, for next year, I mean, one of the reasons for going with 3 is to eliminate a large, I guess, variation in rates. The number that is being provided for the delta next year for that cost between wholesale and required payments to Warrior Run is $47 million. Do we have confidence in that number? I mean, it seems like we were pretty far off this year. Is that number based on at least the I guess the costs and the revenues from this year?
Yeah, if with a big caveat, energy prices obviously have varied. But if energy prices are reasonably steady, through the end of the year, then yeah, I think these forecasts should be reasonably accurate.
Okay, so right, so this would be a good way to proceed then, for ratepayer interests. So.
Right, and then this option leaves a surplus.
Mm-hmm.
At least it should at the end of the year, and it also provides immediate rate relief. Again, right now customers are paying. On average, residential customers pay maybe in the range of $12 or $13 a month. This will lower that to 0 for the next 6 months. And then again, as opposed to going back to maybe $10 or $12 a month, it'll be $5, $6 or hopefully something in that range.
Okay, thank you. That's a good answer. Mr. Chowder, Mr. Hoover, did you have anything to add to that? Great.
I do not.
Okay, great. Commissioners have questions? Commissioner O'Donnell.
I'll defer.
Would you? Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bubar.
Well, I found this fascinating. I didn't know anything about this project, so it was really interesting to read the history. And I think the recommendation makes sense, but I had a similar question to Commissioner Richards, which was, what's the level of confidence that the projection, that we believe in that projection? So I think you've answered that. And then I think you answered my second question, but I'll ask it just to make sure. I wanted to understand, what is the projected surcharge under option 1 based on the $47 million?
Yes, with option 1, there would be no surplus at the end of the year. So yeah, we would expect again, the rate to go from its current, again, residential customers maybe $12 a month in total. Although of course it's a per kilowatt hour charge, down to I think they'd be getting a credit of $10 or so a month, and then it would go back up to again a similar range. Okay. So I will say option 1 gives the most immediate relief. It's just it's a big swing.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Trout, 2 questions. How long?
Just under 8 years.
I ask that every year for the edification of those who may be viewing, and you would be disappointed if I didn't ask. So we got about 8 years to run this project, or this settlement. And then for the $32 million over recovery of this year that you want to defer and credit against the surcharge next year for your customers, does that accrue interest? And if it does, at what rate does it accrue interest?
It does every year. Any over or under recovery accrues interest or charges at a rate that the commission set when this mechanism was first created. My understanding is that that rate is prime.
Why isn't it your authorized rate of return?
I cannot, this mechanism predates me, so I cannot speak to that with any authority. It's a short-term rate based on energy markets, so perhaps that was why it was chosen by the commission a number of years ago for this particular mechanism. But I note that it swings both ways. When there is an under recovery, that's what we gets added as a charge, and when there's an over recovery, in this instance, that's what gets added as a credit.
Okay, well, I guess that makes more sense. What is prime? Do we have any sense of what that is? What's the ballpark?
Depends on what time of day we're talking about, Your Honor, because the Fed's we're told is about to crank it up 0.75%. I mean, actually,
maybe
the short-term rate by 0.75%. I
maybe
don't know
about
what they're changing prime.
2 o'clock this
Yeah.
afternoon, sometime thereabouts. So let's assume it goes up 0.75% or 75 basis points. What would prime be? Do we know?
I'm thinking it might be 2%, or actually a bit over that, somewhere between 2 and 3.
So it's still pretty low.
Yes.
Compared to the inflation rates. And
That's
I'm just trying to figure out how all these dollars work. It's a lot of money. $32 million is a lot of money. And the interest is not insignificant. I can't imagine a utility wouldn't want a rate of return that they're authorized on monies that they had to lay out. But I understand you're saying this cuts both ways by order of the commission.
And as you will recall, Commissioner, the 2 times in the past when we've come in for midterm adjustments, it is because there have been under recoveries, and the balance that was under recovered in both of those instances was earning prime, or for the company was earning prime. So, like I said, the door swings with an equal magnitude both ways.
Fair enough. Well, at least I'm glad to hear it's only 8 years left.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. Yes, the Warrior Run surcharge is always very popular with this commission, will be for commissioners, I'm sure, to come. Are there any other questions? No? All right, for item number 20, I move we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of August 1st, 2022. Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Mr. Chairman, items number 21 and 22 are proposed tariff revisions to the Green Rider rates of Delmarva Power and Light Company and Potomac Electric Power Company.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Paige Shaw on behalf of staff. On July 13th, 2022, DPL and PEPCO submitted proposed tariff revisions to their Green Rider rates to reflect up-to-date renewable energy credit market rates. The rider provides 100% renewable energy, and it is voluntary for the plug-in vehicle and residential plug-in vehicle schedules and mandatory for the public charging plug-in vehicle rate schedule. The proposed rate is 13.7% increase over the existing rate of 0.01756 per kilowatt hour. Staff recommends that the Commission accept the tariff pages for filing with an effective date of August 1, 2022, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Mr. Seegers.
Nothing to add, Your Honor. Here, if you have any questions.
Great, thank you. Do commissioners have questions? Seeing none, I will move for items number 21 and 22 that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of August 1st, 2022. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Mr. Chairman, item number 23 is the PC44 Fleet Subgroup Summary Report in case number 9478.
Great. For this item, why don't we go ahead and move to the table? I'm sure we have staff, representative from OPC. Do we have a representative from the utilities? Yeah, great. Hopefully we'll have enough seats. I believe we well, yeah, well, I didn't know if the staff wanted to sit next to senior advisor. Not necessary? Okay, good. All right. Great. Well, thank you all. And I believe, Ms. Best, you will go ahead and start us off.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Amanda Bass, Senior Commission Advisor and leader of the PC44 Electric Vehicle Work Group. And I'm here to discuss the fleet summary report today. On January 11th of 2022, the Commission issued order number 90036, approving in part and denying in part proposed modifications to the electric vehicle charging pilot program. As part of the order, the Commission directed the leader of the PC44 Electric Vehicle Work Group to convene a fleet-specific subgroup and file fleet recommendations by the end of Q2 of 2022. So the subgroup met several times and discussed utility and non-utility fleet options, potential make-ready applications for fleet charging, and potential revisions to the utility fleet proposals not approved in Order 90036. The subgroup filed its report on June 30th, including a consensus fleet proposal for the Commission's consideration. Included in the fleet proposals are incentives for fleet assessments, make-ready incentives, as well as charger installations. The subgroup recommends the Commission approve the fleet proposals for Baltimore Gas and Electric Company, Potomac Electric Power Company, and Delmarva Power and Light Company as filed in Appendix B of the report. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Best. I probably should have mentioned, too, that we did receive a filing. I became aware of a filing from Montgomery County this morning. Did we have a representative from Montgomery County that wanted to participate? No? Okay.
Chairman, I was told that they won't be here today, but they are happy to answer questions.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I think you had mentioned that, but I just wanted to make sure that that was the case, and we didn't overlook them. At this point, do we want to move to Commission staff? Mr. McAuliffe, do you have anything?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Drew McAuliffe on behalf of staff. Not much to add. As Ms. Best noted, it was a consensus report. We feel there are multiple improvements from the mid-course review we had a few months back. And we think, fleets are kind of a hole in the program right now and are important to address. So we're supportive of the proposals. And just to address OPC's comments, staff has no issue if the Commission wants to review the various proposals coming out of the various working groups we've had going on over the summer. If the Commission wants to review those at the same time, staff is supportive of that. I believe the semi-annual reports will be filed next week, so that would give an opportunity for the Commission to review everything at once in about a month or so.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Mr. Hoover.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Fred Hoover on behalf of the Office of People's Counsel. As you can see in our letter, we've raised the concerns that we've had with the utility involvement in EV deployment and EV charging infrastructure deployment. That being said, we were a participant in this working group. We do not oppose the proposals that came out of this working group. Our concern is that, as Mr. McAuliffe just alluded to, there are a number of subgroups that are filing reports, and we want to make sure that the Commission is cognizant of all the requests that we be made and all the changes that are going to be made, and so maybe looking at this holistically as opposed to just incremental changes going along, which may contribute to the overall impact on ratepayers. But for these specific proposals that are part of this subgroup report, we do not oppose the proposals.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hoover. And representative for the companies.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Joel Michelle on behalf of BG. With me is Christy Fleischman-Gronke. We're available for questions.
Okay.
Good morning, Dan O'Connor from PHI.
Very good. Well, with that, let me, I have a couple of questions I wanted to start off with. And then first, I did want to better understand the OPC recommendation. So if I understand correctly, this is something that you're asking that we would hold off then making a decision today and until a future time when we have all the reports. About when do we expect to get those reports?
We will be filing one final work group report by August 1st. As kind of a preview, I do not expect any other proposals included in that summary report, but that will be the final one filed, at least for the foreseeable future.
Okay. So that is that the final word, or, I mean, is that generally known that there will not be any other programs to be proposed?
A draft circulated to the work group, and comments were received. I will be circulating a second final draft today, with the expectation of filing it, by August 1st so next Monday.
Okay. So Mr. Hoover, does that satisfy, if I don't know if we will make a decision today or before that time, but does that satisfy if we were to want to make a decision before this final report, OPC?
Yeah, we can live with that.
Okay, very good. I did want to go back on a question about if this is a $13.1 million increase, so it's not insignificant, of course. But I do take note that this is something that is a consensus, and it does have the consent of OPC. So I presume OPC sees this in the public interest. I wanted to find out, related to NEVI, to the IIJA dollars. Do we see an opportunity for reducing any of these costs, this $13.1 million, through if we obtain, and are we able to utilize any of those dollars of the NEVI dollars, the NEVI program dollars? But I probably should state what it is. I believe it's National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure something dollars, right? So.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the federal electric vehicle infrastructure program that's coming out of the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act. I will say, based on my rating, and the utilities might have a little bit more to add to this than I do, but I would say, so far, based on the guidance, it looks like a bulk of the federal funding is focused on chargers specifically right now. The state itself filed our plan, I believe, on June 30th, in terms of the formula funding that is going to states. There is a rulemaking that is underway at the federal level for other components of the program, and that probably won't wrap up until early fall of this year. But at least in the guidance that's come out so far, I didn't really see anything specific to fleets or to make ready or anything of that nature. So I think it would really be focused on the charger aspect.
Okay. And I want to go to the utilities on this point, but the fact that, we are looking this as three different programs, but they are bundled together essentially. So does that make potentially Maryland a stronger candidate to get some of those dollars, given that there's a bigger narrative here than just randomly putting electric chargers out in the state?
Right, I might defer to the utilities on that a little bit.
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Christy Fleischman-Gronke with BGE. The NEVI funding that the state filed a plan with is for public charging stations. So the current program that is being worked by the state is for at least 150 kW charging stations within a mile of any federal highways. So they would not address fleets specifically, and they would be for public charging, which of course fleet vehicles could utilize, out in the space if they needed to, but do not address, companies that are looking to electrify their fleets. It's for drivers that are commuting on federal highways that need the charging station, so they're required to be within 50 miles of each other and within 1 mile of the federal highway exits.
Okay. I was not aware of that. I thought that this might be a good program would be very complementary with what we're trying to do in Maryland on fleets, but you're saying that's not the case, at least the way the program is currently laid out.
Right. I think there are separate rounds coming in the future that may address this, but the current focus is on the highway corridors.
Okay. All right, well, hopefully maybe we can communicate with Department of Energy and, see if they could be a little more expansive, because I think I think many of the reports are showing that electrifying fleets is a very good way to move forward, and particularly in this particular program proposal, we're also looking at disadvantaged communities and trying to bring more of the equity and justice to the program. So, just one other question. Maybe start with you, Ms. Best. What was the thinking behind limiting and actually not having any real participant contribution to be part of this program? At this point, it looks like it's more just a deposit of sorts, and if the company does proceed, then they would get that whole amount back. Is there any reason for that? And I also, I'm asking that question because I noted in the filing by Montgomery County that they believe that this program is likely to be oversubscribed, that there are more potential participants than the scope would allow. So just if you could maybe, again, help me understand the thinking behind why there wasn't more participant funding, and, is this a potential problem that we may, have companies out there that will not be able to participate?
Sure, no, thank you. And obviously, other parties feel free to jump on after I try and address the question first. So I'll say when we were looking at least kind of what you're referring to in terms of for the assessment portion of the programs, in terms of having customers provide essentially a deposit should they participate, right? Continue to go on with actual projects. There was discussion, I recall, at the midterm hearings that we had in the fall in terms of, trying to make sure that customers just don't kind of come in and use the assessments and then never go forward with projects. You kind of see something similar in some of the Empower energy efficiency programs where there is kind of that upfront, like small investment required of customers for more expensive assessment and programs to make sure that they do actually try and move forward with these projects. And so I think that was kind of a compromise that was reached in the work group to try and make sure there is some incentive for folks to actually go forward with projects. And in terms of trying to make sure that I think that the focus in terms of trying to scale these projects was there are obviously a lot of fleets out there, but for the purposes of the pilot, trying to make it reasonable to just try and understand what exactly customers need and are looking for. So there is a potential that it could be, tapped out before the 3 years is over. I don't know if we have a good sense of exactly how quickly that would happen, but there certainly is a need for fleet customers. That is pretty evident from the expert witnesses we had come in and talk to the subgroup.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, I appreciate that there is this deposit to try to make sure that we have serious companies. But I was thinking in terms of why not require more of an investment from the company to obtain these incentives? What was the thinking behind having no real investment by the company? And if we were to consider having some participation, maybe participant contribution, that would provide maybe more funds for companies that right now, if it's true that what Montgomery County is stating, to ensure we can include more companies in the program.
I'll let the utilities handle that one.
Thank you again, Christy Fleischman-Gronke. So we try to copy the structure that we have existing for our other commercial rebates. Our multifamily rebate is the same structure. We did add a make-ready incentive because knowing the amount of chargers that the fleets would likely install, that is a significant cost. There will definitely be costs to the company beyond the rebates that we're offering. They have to purchase the vehicles, which we don't provide any incentives for. There are limited state incentives available for that right now. And there will still be costs that they have to bear for the purchase and installation of the stations beyond what we're offering. Again, we wanted to keep it consistent with our other programs, just for familiarity and consistency among our programs. But we believe the customers still have a stake As far as the $2,500, as Ms. Best said, that was a consensus item that came out of the work groups. It wasn't initially proposed by the utilities, and it has been. None of the other states that are offering technical assessments require or that deposit or have that structure. It may be a barrier to entry, but it would hopefully deter some companies that were just looking to have the technical assessment done with no intentions of moving forward. There is some stake for them.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah, and if I could add to that,
Mr. McAuliffe.
Commissioner Richard. Yeah, so the proposal is limited to 2 incentives per customer and 1 incentive per location. So, for example, if Amazon tried to take advantage of this, they could only use it at 2 locations, so they couldn't, for example, use all 100 incentives. So I think that'll help spread the incentives out to more companies. So staff had concerns about that as well with the multifamily rebates. We wanted to focus it on Maryland businesses, not multinational corporations. So I think it'll spread the dollars a bit more. And then in regards to the 10% kind of upfront deposit, yeah, as BGE identified, that wasn't originally in the proposal. Staff did bring that up in the mid-course review that we would like to see some sort of customer contribution, and as has been kind of hinted at, we just feel it kind of weeds out the folks that may not be as serious. So if they realize, oh, well, we have to actually put some money up, it may, you get the more serious customers that are more interested in, fleet, converting fleets to EVs. And the program does also require that, eligible customers, need a fleet of 5 or more vehicles. So we're also, not just getting 1 or 2 vehicles. We're trying to get more bang for the buck, so to speak.
Great. Thank you, Mr. McAuliffe. Before I turn to my colleagues, anyone else want to respond to any of my questions? Mr. Hoover.
Just to follow up on what Drew was saying, I mean, one of the things we've found in these grant programs is, particularly when you're dealing with, a significant sized company, you have levels of approval. And so what we wanted to avoid was a situation where, maybe the person at the lower level thinks this is a great idea and wants to participate, but as it goes farther up the food chain, someone else decides, no, we're not going to do this. And so there's a lot of wasted effort in this process. So the thought was, if the company initially has to make some sort of financial commitment, then you're more likely to get buy-in from them to go forward with the ultimate program.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for that. Do my colleagues have questions? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I got a few questions. I guess I'll ask the work group leader and then anybody else who wants to chime in first. The proposal that we denied without prejudice originally in this space, what was the proposed budget for that and compared to this $13 million expansion?
Right. No, that's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not sure if the utilities know. I can find it if we don't know it.
I don't know the exact number. I know it was higher because we proposed 100 technical assessments, and through the work group that has been scaled down to 50 per utility. And the rebate portion is probably the same as what we proposed. We kept the 100 rebates and at the same level. The new addition would be the slightly higher rebates that would go to companies operating in disadvantaged communities. But all in all, I'd say it's lower than what our initial filing was, but I don't have the exact number.
If we do take this end up taking it under advisement today, and I don't know if we will or won't, but if we do, as suggested earlier, so we can get a more holistic view of all the moving parts and pieces of this, that might be important information for us to know, just to compare. So let me ask the company this. Commissioners have been getting briefings by the Exelon companies this week of supply chain issues. So Vice Presidents Case and O'Donnell at the respective Exelon companies and staff, senior staff, briefed us on pending supply chain issues in a lot of different areas, whether it's stride, transformers, current transformers, potential transformers, or EV infrastructure stuff. It just covers a broad range of stuff. Ms. Fleischman-Gronke, you indicated that there was only NEVI money available for public use infrastructure, but that was only available because that's what you applied to the federal government. Is that not true?
No, that's not true. That's part of the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, the 500,000 stations. I forget, it's like $6 billion, trillion dollars. And then the state got around 60 million to put out for public charging stations. So the utilities have not applied for anything regarding NEVI funding as far as the public charging stations. That's still in the very early stages where the state just filed their plan with the federal government that has to be approved before the state can move forward with setting up the grant process, and that would likely be private charging companies applying to the state for those locations. The utilities would be involved in the make-ready work that has to go, at that site, but that's focused on the public charging, private charging companies.
There are no monies available for fleet electrification in the IIJA at all?
Not that I'm aware of in this initial round.
Okay. That's important to know, because one of the reasons that the supply chain issues briefings gave us for a potentially pending request for delaying the pilot for an additional 2 years, this pilot, was so that they could apply for that IIJA money. So I'm trying to figure out how that all fits together. And help me out with this. Why would we be expanding a program when we already have pending supply chain issues? In other words, we want to expand the program now, but we can't do what we already said we were going to do because of supply chain issues in this space.
Yeah, it's a great question and an unfortunate, time that we're experiencing. Hoping that there will be improvements in that supply chain shortage. There's a lot of companies that are stepping up to kind of fill that gap. Given this fleet program, we're asking for 3 years, so going beyond the 2023, ending into 2025, that things will improve. The technical assessments as the starting point are a great way to let companies know what they can do. Then they can make the appropriate plannings in their business cases and their planning, budgetary planning, so that they can purchase the EVs and the charging stations. So given that it's not going to be, right off the bat, some companies may be ready and purchasing charging stations, but this is a longer process, most likely for customers, and hoping, over the next several months that we see improvements in the supply chain issues for transformers would be the main issue here. Is not so much the chargers, but the transformers to energize the locations.
So I don't think our briefers on the supply chain issues told us when to expect that filing for an extension of the pilot. Is the work group aware of that pending filing? Okay.
It will be in the semi-annual report, which is filed next Monday, August 1st.
Okay, so it's imminent. That's another good reason for us to hold this in abeyance for now and take a look at it comprehensively so we can look at all this together. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. Commissioner Bubar.
Thank you. A lot of my questions have already been asked, so thank you to my esteemed colleagues. I had some questions on the IIJA, so thank you for that information. I think I still actually have some questions after the answers, so we'll go back and do a little bit more studying. So I guess really the remaining question I have, I really appreciate the proposal to wait. As I was, going back and looking at the original report, and I think it might have been like $100-some million was the original request. I don't remember, but and of course the commission scaled that back. And so now I was wondering, are we drifting towards, going in a direction that we originally thought was not the right direction to go in? So I think actually having the bigger picture before we make a decision is probably a good thing to do, but I guess we'll see where we end up. So my question is really, can someone help me understand what a make-ready incentive is?
Sure. So it is defined differently throughout the industry, but in the for this proposal, we are defining make-ready as all of the utility work up into the meter. So wherever there is electric service near the location that the charging stations will be installed, the utility, BG in this case, runs the service from the road, from a pole nearby location, underground to a close proximity of where the chargers would be set, and installs the meter. And then what happens after the meter is the customer side, where they actually install the charging station. So make ready is all of the work that the utility has to do to bring power to that location.
Okay. All right. I think that is all my questions. Everything's been asked. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. I'm not used to sitting in this spot. Sit closer. So I guess my first question is, why are we using 5 as a number for a fleet? Is there some magic to that number?
So I will say that was what was included in the Commission's most recent order as a definition for fleet, 90036, so I think we just continued using that. It's certainly something that could be looked at by the work group if, the Commission would like. I think just, at least for the purpose of these proposals, there was the consistency, a desired consistency between what was proposed and what was included as a definition in the order.
Okay. All right. I don't know that I won't go too far into that. Suffice to say that I don't know that there's a lot of magic behind the number. Certainly there's limited funds here, so one of the filings suggested that a larger number would be more appropriate. Was there any discussion in the work group to considering something bigger as opposed to 5? It's, quite frankly, some large families might have 5 EVs.
Right. No, it's a good question. I think, like I said, I think it really we did really just focus on the language in the order. But, it is certainly something, especially as these programs evolve and as the market evolves, trying to look at kind of how you define these various terms is certainly something the work group can look at. And I think, we're still in kind of the early phase of this. And, trying to make sure that something like a small business that might have, not quite as many as 15, but something smaller than that, like 5 or more, trying to reach those folks as well as the very, very large corporations. So I think the work group is a little sensitive to that. But again, no real magic to that number, I would say, just kind of, what was in line with, the Commission order and kind of what made sense based on the market right now.
All right. So one of the things that the total EV initiative was designed to do was to incent and encourage more private investment in the state. So do we see this proposal as moving that concept forward? And is this going to incent more private EVgo and some of these other companies that offer charging solutions? Or do we see them encouraged by this? Are they part of the work group process? Did they say, yes, this will bring us in? And help me to understand how this gets us a little closer.
Sure. I'll take a first start, and then anyone else that wants to jump in, please feel free. I would say that, the subgroup was comprised of a variety of stakeholders. There were some charging companies. They weren't particularly vocal during the work group, but certainly were there for all of the presentations and saw all the drafts and the discussion. I would say in terms of this, fleets really do impact the economy at large, right? When you're thinking of just moving goods and people around the country. And so ensuring that the market starts moving in that direction of electrifying fleets will surely help private investment as well, because they are going to know that obviously there's an even greater need for their kind of investment in the state as fleets continue to electrify. So I think it definitely aids in that goal in terms of trying to, make sure the private investment is kind of keeping up with the needs of all the varieties of customers that are in the state, including fleets.
Yeah, and I could add to that as well. I think this will help the private investment. It's important to kind of get the ball rolling, I guess, and make that first step. Since this is an adoption of a new technology, the first few adopters kind of take some time. You're already starting to see that with the residential EV market. I believe we've hit 5% of new vehicles are fully battery electric vehicles. What they're seeing is, excuse me, you're more likely to buy an EV if just say your neighbor has an EV and things like that. So I think for fleets, it's important to kind of get the ball rolling, get the first movers who may need incentives to make that move. But once they do it, they'll talk to other businesses, and point out, that the maintenance is lower, things like that. They have lower costs, O&M costs to maintain their fleet. Then, that'll lead other companies to adopt, and then that'll bring the private companies in because as other companies are adopting, they need chargers, they need the infrastructure and things like that. So I think it's just important to kind of get that ball rolling. And then once that happens, that adoption curve really shoots up. And that's where you see the private investment come in.
Now,
Commissioner Linton, I also think that the make-ready cost from the point of view of a small or medium business could be a intimidating and ambiguous cost. And so by providing this and chopping down that barrier of entry, it may also incent more investment in electric vehicles.
so you would see instances where the make-ready costs are completed, but a private industry company would be able to come in and complete the installation by putting their own charging equipment there?
Right, since this is a rebate program, BG or PHI would not own any of the infrastructure or offer the infrastructure. They would purchase that from a private charging company and install that themselves.
All right, thank you. My last question had to do with some of the discussion that I saw in the report. And the place where it really starts off is under potential solutions, where it talks about attempting to address or I would say carve out some of the investment for I use the words from the report itself, if I could find them. There we go. Make-ready incentives are tiered to provide higher incentives for customers located in historically disadvantaged communities. And 25% of the incentives are required to go to customers in these communities. So I noticed that was referenced by a couple parties as a potential solution. It wasn't necessarily identified as a challenge, but it was identified as an issue that the work group wanted to address moving forward. So I guess part of my question ties around just what's the thinking behind how that's going to be implemented? I guess I'll just start with that. I mean, what's the thinking? How is that going to be implemented?
Sure. So through the work group, we had agreed upon using census tract data for historically disadvantaged communities. So companies that operate or are headquartered located in those historically disadvantaged communities would be eligible for the higher incentive values.
Okay. So you're looking at companies that are headquartered in those locations, census tract locations, and offering, is that the only requirement, just that you're headquartered there?
Yeah, we wrote it as operated, so might have to put some thought about how we put the bounds around that. The idea is that, the fleets are getting electrified in those historically disadvantaged communities to improve the air quality and emissions, because it's likely areas that have lower emission or higher emissions rather.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal was to electrify those fleets to improve the emissions in that area, assuming they would be coming in and out of those facilities, operating around those facilities that may be idling diesel engines today.
And so you're looking to, this is not just an urban solution, you're looking to use this statewide?
Yeah.
So Western Maryland, rural communities, et cetera. Okay. All right. Well, the only suggestion I would add to that is that that kind of concept and approach isn't new, which is a good thing in this case. There's some lessons learned that you can rely on, so I'd encourage you to pay attention to those and seek them out if they're not readily apparent. It may not necessarily be in the energy industry, but there could be lessons learned in other industries that would translate pretty easily to what you're trying to do here. Thanks. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Linton. I just listening to the discussion today, I did want to just confirm, one of the concerns I did have, and it was about timing, and I didn't want to do anything, I wouldn't want to recommend we do anything that would disadvantage us with concerns to the IIJA and the NEVI funding. What I've heard today for this particular program, it really is not being considered as part of that program, so there wouldn't be any implications to again, not making a decision for that purpose. Are there any other reasons that particularly I've asked the companies, you see we would need to make a decision, ASAP, within the next, I guess month or so, or, even on the spot? Or is this something that we can continue to deliberate on without disadvantaging our program at all?
I would say no issues delaying, just, the sooner to get to market. We were had requested going live this fall and running the program through the fall of 2025. We are live with our fleet calculator that was approved in the mid-course, so this would help build upon that, so we could promote the fleet calculator along with the technical assessments and really build that out. We are getting a lot of requests from fleet customers. They're starting to get into this space, so we have a lot of inquiries asking what we're offering. And that does come down to some of these larger corporations that are looking to see what states they're going to electrify their vehicles in first. Amazon's a good example of where are there states with incentives that make it make it less costly to electrify in that state. So if we're behind other states in what we offer from incentive values, they may choose to focus in other states first. So other than just addressing, our customers that are inquiring, I don't see any real issues with delaying.
And I agree with BG. There are no concrete dependencies programmatically that would be delayed, but the customer experience and what we're offering to customers is, I think, pressing. And so the sooner we're able to offer the incentives, the better.
Very good, thanks. Okay, for some of the reasons we heard in discussion today, like for instance, Commissioner O'Donnell, his questioning about supply chain, I also would very much like to know how this interplays with some of the concerns the utilities have brought to our attention about equipment and even being able to provide customer support and with transformers and the various meters. So, I would hate to get someone excited about expanding a fleet, make ready, and then find out, oh, we can't do that because I guess you call it the e-warehouse, doesn't have anything available to do that. I thought this discussion on fleet size, because I was thinking on both directions. Some of my work I do with Wamatsi is, we look at a lot of very small fleets, even less than 3, but these are a lot of times in these types of communities, recent immigrants that are starting these companies, and it makes me wonder, should we be considering even fleets that are very in their embryo as far as a company, but helping that company look to electrification early. I think also understanding the program extensions that are being requested and appropriate, as you put, the customer experience, making sure we get this right and that we also align our marketing dollars. So these are some questions that just came to mind just this morning listening to this discussion that I would benefit from. And I'm going to suggest to our and it looks like Commissioner O'Donnell, you have a question, but I was going to suggest that we might want to take this under advisement, but I recognize Commissioner O'Donnell.
I support that, Mr. Chairman. I think it's wise that we do that, but I do want to ask a couple more quick clarifying questions, if I might. When was the original pilot program due to end?
It's due to end December 31st of 2023.
Okay. And there's a footnote in here, 20, that says BG&E and PHI already have authorization for the calculator for 2023, correct? So delaying this wouldn't affect the implementation of that calculator. You're just adding 2 more years onto it, right? 2024 and 2025. I just wanted to clarify that for this discussion. I think that's important too. So we're not going to slow down that process at all.
It's already live.
Thank you.
Let's see, Ms. Garofalo, Let me ask a question. What is the appropriate action at this point? Should we take this under advisement, or should we, I guess, delay? If we have further questions the commission might want to ask, what is the best approach that we take today?
Well, I think you certainly could take it under advisement.
Okay.
In light of something coming up.
Do you want to maybe just we have people listening? I'm sorry.
Sure. I think given that the report's written, you could certainly take this matter under advisement in light of the fact that on August 1, you expect something that would affect your decision. But the other, is it in the alternative?
Well, I guess the reason I'm asking, it sounds like we do have open questions at this point. So is it, do we want to take this under advisement, or do we just want to leave this open?
I see. Well, yes, you could bring people back with a note that, of course, you're not making a decision. To me, that means it's under advisement, but it's not final. If you think maybe after August 1, you're thinking you might have questions based on what's
Okay, so
filing.
we could then request further questions. Okay, so with that,
Does OGC have an opinion on that?
OPC? No, we're actually fine with.
oh, okay, yes.
No.
I didn't see Bob back there. Okay, yes. I just reached for the closest attorney I could find right here.
I was hiding in the back. Bob Irwin, General Counsel of the Commission. If you do have further questions, the simple solution would be to bump it on to an AM 2 weeks from now. That way you get your August 1 report, you can formulate whatever questions you have, bring everybody back on an AM 2 weeks from now, and you can ask your questions at that time.
Well, let me ask this. The August 1 report, do we have that tentatively scheduled, Mr. Executive Secretary, for a proceeding?
No, Commissioner.
Just as a preview, there would really not be any commission action needed for that specific report. It's more of just kind of a.
So we don't have a hearing or anything set in to get that report?
No, so there will be, though, the utilities on the same date will be filing their semi-annual reports, and those are typically heard at an administrative meeting, 30 days after they're filed typically.
Okay, so I would suggest we put all them on the same, if it's okay with OGC, all on the same date, Mr. Chairman. That way we can take them all up at once if we have further questions.
Yeah, why don't we do that? So rather than take on advisement, why don't we postpone this and bring this back up and what was the date? The AM in 2 weeks from today.
Well, no, that's not what you're recommending.
Yeah,
Is that what was the recommendation?
So if you'd like to hear this issue simultaneously to the semi-annual reports that will be filed by the utilities on August 1st.
Okay.
That's typically done 30 days after the filing. So if I pull up a calendar, 30 days, after August 1st, maybe the first one in September, if that, the first
That makes sense.
week
Okay.
in September.
Your Honor, I've just been told that often there are data requests that accompany or follow these reports, and that it may be that 30 days is not quite sufficient.
Okay, Mr. Executive Secretary, can I just suggest that why don't we postpone this until we can schedule this at the earliest possible date, hopefully sometime in September?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Is that acceptable to my colleagues? Great.
So we take it all up at once.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I think this is a very good discussion today, and I appreciate all the information. If there is no other business, this hearing is adjourned.
Thank you.
All right.